Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Happy Friday.
Good morning, everybody.
Hope that you all had a beautiful week, as always.
And today we are going to just speak with you. We still haven't gotten any questions. There are a lot of topics that we were just talking about, and we really want to hear what folks are interested in, any direction. There was a fellow who mentioned the elements, and we didn't get to respond to that yet, so I just wanted to say a little bit about my understanding of the elements, and Ram Krishan Kaur can share anything that she'd like to say. But in terms of the elements, I see them as life. Life, you can just begin to see everything as in terms of the five elements. You have earth, water, fire, air, ether. There are different systems that say there are different elements out there, but food you can classify in terms of the elements. Different aspects in your lives you can classify, different relationships you can classify in terms of the elements. And when we want to talk about the elements, the first thing that comes to my mind is balance. So a person wants to just examine themselves and see what element is most predominant within themselves, and each of these elements have different qualities. Earth is very stable, very practical, very solid, usually like steady. Water is fluid, flexible, flowing, creative, expressive, emotional. Fire is very active and very energetic, very also creative, very bright, very charismatic.
And very intense.
And air is this air is usually like a person who is, or the qualities are changing, very transient. Always one thing to the next, it can just change very easily, and as if there are no strings, very free. Um,
They could also be very much dominated by the world of thought. It's very much about the mind and
mhm,
thinking.
mhm. In terms of people, yeah, and thought.
Mm-hmm.
And ether is very expansive. And ether is considered, for those who aren't familiar, it's the building block of life, and all things are made of this tiny particle of life force, of energy. And so the people are usually classified in terms of those, but in your life you can find that as like the more subtle aspects of your life, where you receive inspiration from, and where you feel connected to something beyond the five senses. Is like that element of ether. It's that mystery. It's that element of like God or the divine, or something in your life that equates with that, is that element of ether. So a person wants to just look at their life and see how they can balance it in terms of the elements. And if you need a little bit more fire in your life, maybe you want to do a little bit of physical activity. Maybe you want to eat spicy foods. Maybe you want to hang out with people who have a lot of fire energy. All of these are different ways to bring that energy into your life.
Yeah, the fire practices, any of the breath of fire is also a really great pranayama that you could do to build that fire inside.
And this is a really deep topic and study to talk about. But it is also just very simple and very intuitive. So, as simple as I just stated it, a person can study any of the elements by hanging out in nature, because you're surrounded by the elements. The sun is considered your fire. You have the earth element as your trees and all of life that's surrounding you. You have the water as a stream, or the water as it behaves in nature. And you have the air that surrounds you, and you breathe the air, the wind that comes by. And ether, again, is that subtle stillness that really speaks. And you can study these qualities of each of those elements, and then your life begins to take a new dimension when you begin to notice those same qualities in your moment to moment interaction with your just whatever you're doing in your day. Those elements, you're like, oh, this person has a lot of earth energy, or wow, that practice just, I can feel a lot of fire energy out of a lot of, you know, energy that wants to find expression. That fire inside has come out of me doing that.
And as Rob Christian Singh said about recognizing these different elements out in the world, it's really helpful with how you're relating to others. So there's a lot of different personality tests that are available that help you see how to relate to other people based on your personality and their personality. But you could just take the elements and see, okay, so I'm going to go talk to this person. I have a meeting with a person and he has a lot of fire. So I'm not going to give him a lot of airy ideas, or I'm going to speak to him really excitedly and with like a lot of focus and like to the point and just more of those qualities. Or if you're going to speak to somebody who has a lot of earth, that's a really good example about not being really airy fairy all over the place. They want facts, they
Mm-hmm.
want details, they want things really clear and grounded. So the deeper you go into studying these different elements, the easier it is for you to recognize them in other people, and then you could like really curtail the way that you speak with them and relate to them based on those elements.
And there are different systems like Chinese medicine and Tibetan medicine and Ayurvedic philosophy and thought. This is all around balancing the different elements. And what we're speaking about now is, I guess it takes elements of those different schools of thought, but the reality is that we've just come to understand the elements through direct interaction and study of and through nature, the different elements. And um, it's a large part of when I'm working with a person is to help them to understand themselves in terms of the elements and their lives in terms of the elements, and then bringing more balance to their lives in terms of the elements. Everything is broken down, and even the way that they eat, elemental eating is just understanding in every meal to have a balance of what you're eating. And maybe you need a little bit more fire, you put a little bit more spice in there. You have too much fire, just definitely take the spice out. Bring yourself some more cooling foods. And the food has a very large part to do with what you're experiencing inside. You take these foods in, and it stimulates different conditions inside the body. And then this awareness of this field of energy that we are is a field of awareness. And the more fire there is in our field, the more fire there is in our awareness. And our energy just is more fiery. And so the food really has a big role to play in our elemental composition.
Absolutely. When I was spending some time in the jungle, I was able to really go into the subtleties of these different things within myself, because we all have the five elements within ourselves and they come into play in different ways at different times. And also just exploring with the food, even to now, exploring with the food how to create that balance that Ramakrishna Singh is talking about. I've noticed I've been very, very sensitive to spicy. So having a lot of fire inside. So I've been really cooling down the diet a lot, and I could see just by introducing more cooling foods and removing more of the spicy, just how things have balanced out more and more. And I've noticed also when I've done mostly raw food that I've gone very airy and I've needed some like grounding food to just come back and be more present.
She would crave rice.
Yeah, I would crave rice or bread, things that I don't necessarily want to have every day, but just I needed that grounding. And working with the Kundalini yoga, it was just too unbalancing to have just predominantly fruits and vegetables. So I did need something that was a little bit more grounding, and also at that time more stimulating. So I did introduce some spicy and I did introduce some more of the grounding foods
Hmm.
to just balance it out.
And then, okay, so we have our interactions, we have our foods that we eat, and then we look at our activities. Like, for example, if is the person active in their lifestyle, or for yourself, are you active in your lifestyle? Are you more intellectual or analytical in what you're doing day to day? Are you interacting with people where you have to have this give and take, like watery interaction? Like just looking at your life and seeing, well, what element do I really embody to other people? And then just reflect for yourself, how can I better create balance in my life so
Mm-hmm.
that I'm a, a like I am that presence of ether. I am that stillness that all of the elements sort of revolve around moment to moment. I'm not just this element where I'm lost in it, but I am this uh, presence of potential that I can choose how to interact with any situation. I can respond wisely to any situation rather than just be in this mode of I'm always going to respond in this same way because this is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And it just brings more a greater sense of awareness, of freedom, of presence, is to be in from that still point and able to interact with any situation
Mm-hmm.
as however it's needed.
Slightly off of that, but I think it also has to do a lot with it. I was just reflecting on a lot of the people that I've known, and usually whatever your predominant element is what you tend to favor. So I've known a lot of people who are very fiery and they like spicy food and they like all these other things that might actually be creating a huge imbalance because they're just focusing on that and all these other areas, all the other elements are not really being brought in and
Mm-hmm.
it's not creating balance. Or a lot of people who are very airy and then they like the airy foods, which just keeps them in that
Yeah.
airiness. But then they go out into the world and they can't function because they're not grounded enough or they don't have that fire that's needed in some situations. So it's really a neat opportunity to recognize what your predominant element is and to go out of your way to bring the other elements into your life to create that balance and that harmony because the whole world is a balance of the five elements.
Yeah. So ether again, to understand the element is ether is like that potential. Ether is that presence that everything else comes out of. Ether is the building block of all of creation, all of life. Anything can be made from ether. And ether is like prana. Ether is ki, chi, whatever it's been called. What are some other words?
The ones that are coming to mind.
Whatever is that basic element of life that everything comes out of, that's what the element ether is. And in the sense of what we want to create balance, we want to create is that we are the ether at the center, and all the four elements revolve around ether. So we are that potential of life, that anything is possible. We can create anything that we need. And the other elements are what we bring into life.
Mm-hmm.
Because the four elements are what you see all around us. And ether is what, it's like the God particle, that when you go deeper and there's no division, it's only this. There's only that presence.
Which reminds me also of the different gunas. So sattva, rajas, and tamas. So sattva would be more like ether, you would say. So more balance.
No, ether's more what the center is. But good thinking, but you know how they say you want to be the eye in the middle of it?
Mm-hmm.
That's what the element ether's trying to represent, is that unified particle that all things are. Yeah. So,
So I guess that's what we have to share with you all this week. Please, but send us your questions. Send us the topics that you're interested in because Again, that's what's going to excite us to really want to share, and we're going to be answering directly what it is that you want to know, which is why we do these videos to begin with. So just any kind of question across the board, because we have human life experience, and then we've also each had different paths that we've been on. So it doesn't have to just be about Kundalini yoga. It doesn't have to just be about Sikh Dharma. It could be really about anything that you wish to ask
Hmm.
us about.
And so, yeah, if you're interested in hearing more about what we're talking about now, again, it's a really big study. We've just been seeing how these videos flow. Today, again, was just a trial of coming into a glimmer of what we might talk about and then just talking a little bit. Maybe next week we'll also set a topic early in the week and then meditate on that throughout the week and then see if anyone asks questions, but we'll try that next week.
So have a beautiful week, everybody, and we look forward to sharing with you on Monday another meditation,
Mhm.
and then we'll see you again on Friday.
Okay, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Waheguru
Ji
Ji
Ka
Ka Khalsa,
Khalsa,
Waheguru
Waheguru
Ji
Ji
Ki
Ki
Fateh.
Fateh. Have a blessed week, everybody. Satnam.